Welcome everyone. I am Mary Soucie, State Librarian of North Dakota, and the session that you are in is libraries reopening. So I'm going to share my screen. So library reopening plans. So your audio has been turned off as well as your video. We've been asked to ask people not to turn them on. I see there's a question, sound. Can people not hear me?
We are hearing you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. You can use chat to connect with other participants or to ask questions. And if you want to tweet about this, use the hashtags Library 2020 and Small Rural Independent. And if my helper would start the record button now.
It's recording.
Perfect.
Yes, it's good.
Thank you. All right. So library reopening plans. As we are slowly moving towards a new normal, we will have some long-lasting impacts on how libraries operate. Some of the changes that we are implementing, especially in the area of cleaning standards, are probably things we should have been doing all along or to a certain extent, and things that we'll keep doing from now on. Maybe not to the same degree as we are right now, or as we will be as we reopen. Different states are in different phases of opening. Here in North Dakota, our state started to reopen May 1st. Our libraries were never shut by the governor. They were actually allowed to stay open if they wanted to. It was a local library decision. Almost all of our libraries closed, and they are in various stages of reopening now. So maybe not to the same degree as we're doing right now, or we will be doing as we begin to opening, but certainly more than many of us were doing prior to COVID-19. Today, we're going to have a high-level discussion on phased reopening, what some of the trends are, and what the road ahead might include. And near the end, we'll have a lot of chat or some conversation as well on what that road might include. I say might because things are continuing to change very rapidly and flexibility is highly needed. So some of the trends that are in the library reopening plans, in almost all of them include increased digital resources. Across the board, libraries increased their digital resources while they were closed, and they intend to keep that once they're open. And the expectation of our users are that we'll continue to provide access to those digital resources. Are you guys not able to see my slides very clearly? That's what it looks like in chat. Okay, they look good to some, not to others. I believe the PowerPoints will be available and the recordings definitely will be available. Great, thank you everyone that hopped in. So one of the most common trends that we're seeing in phased reopening plans is that it's being phased. Many libraries were closed completely. Many libraries jumped right to curbside. So libraries that were closed completely, many of them are starting with curbside service, and that looks very different depending on your library. It can be anything from patrons place a hold, you pull them, they set up an appointment time, they come pick it up. Library staff take the books out and hand them to the patrons, or the contactless method where the patron opens their trunk, slides open their side door, staff put the items in the car, patron goes away. Another way to do curbside is to have tables set up, staff put the items on the tables, and then patrons pick the items up from the tables. So again, providing that contactless. Another trend that a lot of libraries are moving to, whether it's in that phase 1 or phase 2, is appointment only. So a patron sets an appointment to come in. They're given a limited time to be in the library. There's a limited number of patrons in the library, and that's really going to be determined by the size of your building. So at the State Library of North Dakota, because we do have a regular browsing collection, we are limiting right now to 3 appointments per hour. And I see some other people seeing that they're doing appointments this week as well. Trends is the only image right now that you'll see on your screen. Limited, so I see limited browsing. A lot of people are jumping in to say that. The other thing that goes along with the limited browsing is the limited length of time. Some people are limiting to pick up only, so patrons have to pre-order their books through holds, or another trend is book bundles. So libraries pick a topic and they put together a bundle of 10 books on that topic. And then patron comes in and all they get is that bundle of books. Other libraries are allowing browsing in 15, 30, or 1 hour increments. One of the things to consider when you are setting those appointment times is you have to leave yourself time in between appointments for the sanitizing. I see a question from Marcia about open stacks, what to do about that. Not enough staff to monitor each aisle. So there's been a lot of discussion. I'm a member of the Association for Rural and Small Libraries. There's been discussion in that group in MPLA here in North Dakota at ALA. What I've seen a lot of libraries doing with that, and the literature that I've read as well, Marcia, what a lot of libraries are doing is sort of taking the tact of, to a certain extent, libraries are like grocery stores. They don't sanitize every aisle of the grocery store after every customer. You don't know who has picked that item up. So that's the tact that I see a lot of libraries doing. They're trying to wipe things down after patrons come in, but they're allowing the open stacks. Some libraries are doing closed stacks and holds pickup only. So it kind of, again, runs that gamut. Some of the other, whoops, I'm trying to look at some of the other chats. Hoping to open to limited capacity. Some have stacks blocked off. Story kits and crafts, that's a great idea. That's another trend that's going on. Though you can do the one-way aisles, that suggestion from Meg. So you, similar to the grocery stores, you put the arrows so that people are only going one way in an aisle to prevent how close people can be. Take as many precautions as you can, as Thomas said. Be realistic. There's only a certain level that you can go to, and if you're a smaller library with 1 or 2 staff members, you're very limited in what you can do. Another trend is limiting kids access by requiring a parent to be with them. Oh, it seems I'm frozen for someone. I hope it's not for everyone. There was a question about items. That's one of the trends I was going to talk about. People are quarantining anywhere from an hour to 72 hours. 72 is the longest that I've seen. Quarantining means you bring the items in, you either put them on a table specifically set aside for the quarantine of materials and you let them sit there, or you have a bin, as staff 6, whoever you are, said, that you put things in, they sit there for 3 days. After the 3 days, you take them. Some libraries are then wiping them down additionally after the quarantining. I see A Page has U-Haul boxes and they're sealing them for 3 days. Some are quarantining for 7 days. 96 hours in New York State. A lot of people are waiting for that OCLC study, Darla, that IMLS and OCLC are doing. I think I read somewhere that there may be some information out next week on that. And if you're not familiar with that study, IMLS has partnered with OCLC in a lab in Ohio to do some tests, the REALM study, to do some tests on how the virus actually lives on library materials. There was an item released today from REALM, which was a literature study. So that's what came out today. Some of the other, along with the limited patrons, another big trend that we've seen in libraries across the country is limited hours. So either being open less hours than you are, or being open for some hours in the morning and some hours in the afternoon to try and hit both patrons. What we're doing at the State Library, once we move to open July 6th, we'll be open from 8 to noon and then back to appointment and curbside by curbside on request for the rest of the day. I'm trying to look at some of these chats. They're going fast and furious now. So there's some questions on what they're doing for grab and go. In terms of how to convince your library board to reopen, I think you need to look at what the rest of your community is doing. If city offices are starting to reopen, that's one argument that you can use. You can also look to what some of the other neighboring libraries in your state are doing. If your state library has released recommendations, if not, many of the state libraries have COVID resources where they're gathering recommendations from other libraries as well. So you may be able to gather some information there, Sunny, to share with your board. In terms of browsed items, I think what Meg's recommendation, that you ask patrons to put them on a special cart or to put them in a special bin if they look at them but don't check them out. Then again, just like at the grocery store, we know people are going to pull things off our shelves and put them back. That's just normal behavior. So we need to make sure that we're saying we're sanitizing to a certain extent, but not promising a safe environment. Some of the other trends, limiting kids, I think I said that already. A big trend and a big conversation on a lot of the meetings that I've been in is requiring versus requesting that patrons wear masks, and you require or request that staff wear masks. Some of that is set by local law or state law. We are in a state-owned buildings. We have been told by our attorney we cannot require them. We can request them, so we're providing them. If you're concerned because libraries around you are opening, but your state is having spikes, you can maybe explore doing the curbside or continuing to offer virtual services. Hopefully that answers that question. So there's a question about maintaining lists of contact, and this is varying by state. In some states, libraries are very much a part of that, working with the health department, and in other states it hasn't. In meetings that I've been in where this topic has come up, there have been very strong opinions on both sides. I can tell you what we're doing here at the state library. It has been recommended by our governor that all people who come into a state building are screened. So we are taking temperatures of everyone who comes in the building. We have 3 questions that we're asking them, and this is paraphrased, but one is, have you traveled internationally in the last 14 days? Are you experiencing any symptoms that would indicate a viral illness? Have you been diagnosed with COVID? And then all we are writing is the first name. We record the temperature. We separate that out by patron staff, state library staff, and other staff. And then after 14 days, we are shredding those. So we're not really doing full contract tracing because we're not doing full names. And that again is a local library decision. I've seen a lot of arguments about patron confidentiality, but I've seen a lot of other arguments that this is a global health crisis and a pandemic. So Savannah, I see your question. That's asked a lot. How can we require shirts and shoes, but not be allowed to require masks? That varies again. A lot of our libraries have checked with their attorneys and they've been told that in a public building, you can suggest it, but not require it. But in your state, it may be allowed. Another thing to keep in mind, and someone else has made this comment as well, there are some health issues that preclude people from wearing masks. They may have breathing issues. They may have a mental health issue. There may be other things at play. So again, if someone says they can't wear a mask, You want to be very careful before requiring them because there could be medical issues at play. So Gail says that their state board of library commissioners has recommended not keep names for contract tracing because of privacy. Savannah's saying if they can't wear a mask, you can go to curbside. I think that's a great solution as well. And Joy shared a article in a blog post on the mask. Some other trends that we're seeing are limited services. So a lot of libraries are either not allowing access to their computers at all, or they're allowing limited access. Either not all computers are available, the computers have been spread farther out, so they're social distanced. Some libraries are limiting where patrons can access on their computers. At the state library, we have one computer that's 15 minutes only. That's another trend to limit shorter times. And our other computer is limited to unemployment applications. Questions if some businesses are requiring customers to sign waivers for suing or any libraries. Vicki, I have not seen any libraries that are issuing waivers for patrons to sign to protect from the risk of suing. I'm not going to say that there aren't any. In the research that I've done, I'm not aware of any. So I see Amy is requiring masks, but offering no contact takeout for those who can't or choose not to wear a mask. I think that's a really nice way to balance that. I think curbside service that gets to that down the road slide we're going to look at in a minute. I think curbside service is a service that many libraries are planning on continuing to offer even once they're open. You just have to balance, how do I continue to offer curbside service with in-person service, especially if I'm a small staff. Some of the other trends are meeting rooms that are closed, not allowing any meetings at all, removing all chairs from tables or leaving only one chair per table, spreading those tables out again so that they are social distanced. On a meeting that we had yesterday with the North Dakota library community, someone said it, they are trying to take measures to discourage people from hanging out at the library. And that is counterintuitive to everything that we as librarians believe in. Some are closing the restrooms, some are reopening the book drop. We talked about the quarantining, and then of course sanitizing materials, surfaces, all of those kinds of things. Definitely going to have to reinforce existing library policies about loitering. Book drops, that's one of the things that is a trend now, is reopening book drops. A lot of libraries are doing only book drop returns. Of course, virtual programs. Many libraries have flipped to virtual programs only. Summer reading this year is virtual. Virtual story times, live or pre-recorded. Book discussion groups, knitting clubs, crafters clubs, discussion groups. One of our libraries in North Dakota just became an affiliate with the Podcast Brunch Club. So it's a curated list of podcasts. People that get shared, people choose which podcasts to listen to. And then once a month, the library is going to facilitate a discussion group about those podcasts. I think that's a wonderful idea. And then a fun trend is going back, dial a story, using telephones for seniors. Bookmobiles, a lot of libraries are limiting their bookmobiles to sort of curbside only, or allowing only one person on the bookmobile at a time, because there is no way to social distance in most bookmobiles. This time is going incredibly fast and furious. So what does the future look like in libraries? And before we switch to that, I'm going to answer, and yes, some library systems are not opening yet. In some states, libraries aren't even allowed to open yet. It has varied state by state. Some libraries, in some states, libraries were shut down by the governor and they can't reopen till the governor allows them to. Or in at least one state, the state librarian made that call. So It really varies. StoryCorp, outdoor story times is a huge trend right now, as well as story walks, permanent and temporary, where you kind of take yard signs, put your story pages up, trying to keep up with which publishers are allowing live versus which are allowing you to only do story times in a private group. So the future in libraries, you know, it's hard to say right now what the future in libraries is going to look like, other than it's going to be different. And we know that. Increased sanitizing is a given. I think sneeze guards or plexiglass on desks are here to stay probably forever. Once we move to in-person programs again, and we may be a year to 18 months away from that, programs are going to be smaller. We're not going to have 300, 400, 500 summer reading kickoffs anymore. You need to look at your policies. Patron behavior will need to be updated, as I think it was Meg said earlier, reinforcing those loitering. Your meeting room policies are going to have to be updated for social distancing, your computer policy. What other policies are you going to have to be updated? I saw a question about restrooms. In North Dakota, most of our libraries, our small and rural 1- and 2-person libraries, are shutting the restrooms to the public. And some of them are getting pushed back. Some of them, their patrons are just going in and they're just allowing it, but they're putting closed signs, hoping that most people will follow them. I see ABO's list has a great discussion on bookmobiles and how to reopen them. That's a great resource. Auto renewals, that's another trend. Thank you for bringing that up, Colleen. I forgot to mention that. A lot of libraries have moved to auto renewals, and most libraries are waiving fines right now. There has been a definite increase in fine-free libraries. They went fine-free during COVID when they were closed, and they're going to continue that. If you are only cleaning your restrooms once a day, that's a great thing. Staff 6, whoever you are, they're saying they're putting up a sign that says restrooms cleaned once a day. The other thing I have seen a lot of discussion on is newspapers. I'll point out, Melissa, your attorney saying you can't close restrooms to the public. I highly recommend everybody check with their library attorney, whoever your attorney is, city library, whoever, to check on that. If you don't have restrooms, patrons can't wash their hands. That's a great point from Hokie County Public Library. The libraries that I know of that are closing their restrooms have sanitizer. They've been able to get their hands on sanitizer. Waiving fines. I think the fine-free was a trend before this. Fine-free is going to be a trend going forward. Oh, wow, that's an interesting idea. So portable toilets. One library put portable toilets. And I see Lily saying they're not putting newspapers out, and that has run the gamut. Some libraries are putting out newspapers with the sign that says use at your own risk. Some libraries are putting out newspapers and saying to patrons, please wear gloves when you read the newspapers. Some libraries aren't putting them out at all. In North Dakota, we have one library who at the end of the week is putting the newspapers out to take them for free. So it's all over the board. One trend that I think we're going to see in libraries is movable, flexible furniture. I think we're going to see strong, sturdy library tables, those that I grew up with and that I love, go away for more tables that can easily be moved, put together, spread apart, light, easy. Another trend that I think we're going to see, a lot of libraries with public computers, and some libraries are moving away from public computers because people are bringing in their own devices and they're moving towards mobile patrons or mobile printing, sorry. But I think we're going to start to see libraries move away from desktops to mobile laptop kiosks, because again, that offers that flexibility. You'll be able to allow patrons to use. One tip that comes from a library in the Association for Rural and Small Libraries, we're using it here. It's a cheap solution for keyboard protection, press and seal. You can put press and seal over your keyboards. Patron leaves, you take your gloves, you take the press and seal off. A lot of libraries are moving to flatter keyboards or the medical keyboards because they're easier to wipe. Or keyboard protectors, right? That was a thing in the 90s. It went away. Now they're coming back. And a continued increase in digital resources. That's going to be another thing. So here's my contact info. I'm gonna stop sharing now so we can see each other's faces. So that was a lot of information in a really short, compact time. Lots of great discussion in the chat. Software for help customers and social distance at the same time. Sort of do-it-yourself computer. That's a great question. I'm not aware of one. Oh, sure. You know what? I'll throw my contact info in the chat. Will that work? That way you can just copy and paste it. Press and seal is the really sticky version of plastic wrap. Yes. E.M. Mullins. It does not leave a residue though, and you can type through it. Our reference assistant has been playing with it for the last couple of weeks, and it has been very, very easy to type through. Some of our libraries in North Dakota that are using it are getting pushback from their patrons. I think the other, I don't know if I want to call it a trend, we as librarians are going to have to shift our thinking. We have always been about meeting the needs of our patrons and bending over backwards to do so. We're going to have to weigh meeting patrons' needs with living through a pandemic and providing some safety measures. So even if your patrons don't want that press and seal, they may just have to live with it. Meg, when I first heard it, I thought the same thing. Seriously, press and seal? We have 4 boxes of it here at the State Library. So it's a funny, cheap solution. Cash, that's a great, we are still taking cash here at the State Library. We are not prepared to be cashless. We are changing press and seal after each user, yes. Oh, baggies over the mouses. Kathy, that's a great solution. Thank you. If someone has an idea for how to go easily cashless, we at the State Library, we're bound by, you know, we have to use the state treasurer for things and whatnot, but at a local library, it may be a lot easier to do that. So taking cash, but washing hands. Awesome. So if anybody has any ideas on what the future of libraries will look like or other questions, I'll continue to hang out here. I know there's other sessions you may need to get to, and I know these sessions will be recorded and shared on the Library 2.0 page in the future. Oh, a donation box, that's a great idea as well. Thanks everyone for joining and for your kind comments. Oh, add to the library account and Lemonade check once a month. That's a great idea. I'm hoping my colleague Brianna is still here and wrote that down, which I don't think she is. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and end this because I'm not sure if this room has to be used for the next session or not. So thank you so much for sharing your ideas with us.
Miss Soucie.
Yes.
Oh, did you need me to do anything else?
I was just going to ask you, I think we're good to end now, aren't we?
Okay, thank you. And I hope to be your moderator for another session that you.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.